The 1st Battalion, 509 Infantry Regiment, better known as the Geronimo Battalion, carries a legacy that dates back to 1941. They were the first in the U.S. Army to execute a combat jump during World War II, cementing their place in military history. Today they serve as the opposing force, OPFOR, at the Joint Readiness Training Center, JRTC. And if you ask any unit that has faced them, they'll tell you the same thing. The 509 is the most hated unit in the Army, but that title, they wear it like a badge of honor. The OPFOR program consists of active duty soldiers stationed at major training centers with one mission: to act as a formidable enemy in simulated combat scenarios. These soldiers are professionals at making life miserable for their opponents, using years of experience to outmaneuver and outthink the very best the military has to offer. Unlike conventional units that rotate through training centers every few years, OPFOR units live in this world full-time. They undergo grueling training cycles every month, spending weeks at a time in simulated combat environments, essentially living a deployed lifestyle year-round. While other soldiers train to win real-world battles, the 509th trains to beat the soldiers who will fight those battles. But where did this unit come from? The origins of the 509th trace back to World War II, when the U.S. Army needed highly mobile forces capable of rapid deployment. Initially formed as the 504th Parachute Infantry Battalion in October 1941 at Fort Benning, Georgia, they quickly evolved into a premier airborne force. On November 8, 1942, they made history as the first U.S. Army unit to execute a combat parachute jump in World War II, flying 1,500 miles from England to seize an airport in Oran, Algeria. Over the course of the war, they conducted 5 combat jumps, proving themselves as an elite fighting force. There are plenty of wild stories about OPFOR units, and not just in the United States. One that really sticks out is about a guy whose father served in the Danish Home Guard back in the 80s. During a nighttime training exercise, his dad and a couple of buddies casually strolled up the main road toward the blue team's camp. A sentry spotted their silhouettes and did his duty, demanding them to stop and identify themselves. Without missing a beat, his dad snapped back, "Oh, fuck off, you idiot, it's me." The sentry, completely convinced, apologized and let them through, right before they took him down. From there, they went full chaos mode, spraying down all the barracks and making their grand escape in a stolen truck. By morning, their antics had completely derailed the exercise, and a furious officer tore into them for blowing up the entire scenario. But it's not just the Danes who get creative. Over in Scandinavia, the Finns and Norwegians were engaged in a similar exercise, each side playing the enemy to the other. One particularly inventive Finn had a stroke of genius. He opened Tinder and found a bunch of profiles with Norwegian soldiers in uniform, all conveniently located at roughly the same distance. Thinking quickly, he handed his phone to a spotter, who then used it to pinpoint enemy positions. Every time they found a cluster of Norwegian soldiers, they hit them with artillery. The Norwegians reran the exercise over and over, trying everything, including complete radio silence, but the shells kept coming. They were convinced the Finns were cheating, but couldn't figure out how. Training exercises really are a playground for absurdly effective tactics, where you can channel your inner Digby Tatham Warder. Digby, an absolute legend from World War II, famously wore a bowler hat and carried an umbrella as his battlefield identifier. His logic? Any sentry who reported spotting a man with a bowler hat and an umbrella would instantly lose credibility. And if that wasn't ridiculous enough, he even used the umbrella to jab at a tank crew through their viewing port. That wasn't just training, he did it to actual German forces. If it works, it works. Who knows, maybe that Danish Home Guard bluff, or even the Tinder trick, will end up being legitimate tactics one day. And speaking of bizarre, back in the late 90s at the Joint Readiness Training Center, there was an unexpected participant in the exercises, an escaped ostrich. This wasn't some weird mission parameter, it had broken loose from a private zoo that went under. But here's the best part, there was an unwritten rule that no one acknowledged its existence. If someone spotted it and mentioned it, those in the know would act like the guy was hallucinating. "Sergeant, an ostrich is an African wild animal. What would it be doing in Louisiana?" They'd keep this up for days, making the poor guy question reality before finally letting him in on the joke. Training might be serious business, but Sometimes it's just as much about who can mess with each other. The fast forward to today, and the 509th serves as the permanent adversary at the Joint Readiness Training Center, JRTC, where they sharpen the skills of America's warfighters. Their job is brutal yet essential, to push soldiers beyond their limits by simulating real combat environments that are as unpredictable as the battlefields they will eventually face. Unlike most units, which rotate in and out of training centers, OPFOR units remain in constant action, running approximately 12 rotations per year. They develop an unparalleled understanding of their training environment, making them experts in the terrain, strategies, and tactics needed to overwhelm their opponents. What makes them so dangerous is their ability to operate at a disadvantage and still come out on top. They frequently engage in battles where they are outnumbered 2-to-1 or even 3-to-1, yet they still manage to win. That's because they aren't just fighting, they are teaching. Every loss suffered by the rotational units is a lesson learned before deployment. Facing a highly skilled and determined enemy in a controlled environment allows these brigades to identify weaknesses, test strategies, and refine their combat effectiveness before they face the real enemy overseas. The impact of OPFOR training is enormous. These soldiers help determine whether a unit is truly ready for combat by exposing every flaw in their tactics, logistics, and coordination. They assess how well units manage supplies, how effectively they conceal communications, and how they react under the pressure of simulated warfare. They identify gaps in leadership and force commanders to make tough decisions in real time. Soldiers assigned to the 509th gain an unrivaled level of experience in deception, ambush tactics, and unconventional warfare, skills they carry with them when they transition to other units. Their knowledge makes the entire army stronger, one brutal defeat at a time. Training under the 509th isn't a simple exercise, it's an all-out war. The process is divided into 3 main phases, each designed to challenge and refine soldiers at every level. First, the situational training exercise, STX, lanes introduce units to their environment, forcing them to adapt and react to scripted scenarios designed to expose vulnerabilities. Then comes the command planning exercise, where leadership is tested under extreme pressure. Here, commanders at all levels are forced to make rapid decisions that directly affect their troops on the ground. Finally, the training culminates in a massive force-on-force battle, lasting several days and designed to simulate the chaos of real warfare. There are no easy victories against the 509th. Every success is hard-earned. The scenarios crafted by the 509th are as varied as the threats the Army may face: urban warfare, convoy security, counterinsurgency operations, rural combat. No 2 engagements are the same. These exercises push soldiers to their limits, forcing them to adapt, think critically, and execute tactics under extreme conditions. The unpredictability of the 509th makes them the ultimate training tool. There are no scripted outcomes, no guaranteed wins, only a relentless enemy that refuses to go down without a fight. But what makes this unit so feared isn't just their tactics, it's their attitude. The 509th takes immense pride in their role as the Army's professional adversary. They don't just play the bad guys, they embody them, using every trick in the book to frustrate, outsmart, and demoralize their opponents. They exploit weaknesses ruthlessly, forcing rotational units to adapt or suffer humiliating defeats. They don't just prepare soldiers for war, they make sure those soldiers know exactly how painful failure can be. The reputation of the 509th extends beyond training centers. Their effectiveness in preparing units for deployment means they have a direct impact on real-world combat readiness. Soldiers who have faced the 509th in training often credit them with being tougher, more aggressive, and more unpredictable than actual enemy forces overseas. This experience gives deployed troops a significant advantage, having already faced an opponent designed to be as ruthless and unforgiving as possible. Of course, not everyone appreciates the 509th's relentless approach. Many soldiers cycling through JRTC leave with a deep resentment for the unit that made their lives miserable for weeks on end. But that hatred is exactly what makes the 509th so effective. They aren't there to be liked, they're there to be the enemy, and they embrace that role fully. For them, every victory against a rotational unit is proof that the Army is getting stronger. Every frustrated commander, every exhausted soldier, every defeated brigade, these are signs that lessons are being learned, that weaknesses are being exposed before they become become fatal in real combat. At the end of the day, the 509th Infantry Regiment is a crucial part of the Army's training infrastructure. They ensure that soldiers experience failure in training so they don't experience it in battle. They make sure that complacency is punished, that tactics are sharpened, and that commanders are forced to make tough calls under pressure. They are, without a doubt, the most hated unit in the Army, but also one of the most vital. So, the next time a unit rolls into JRTC thinking they've got what it takes to dominate the battlefield, they should remember one thing. The 509 has been here longer, trained harder, and fought smarter, and they're ready to prove, once again, why they are the most formidable opponent the Army has ever created.